It's time for From the Shortgrass, presented by UAMS Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine with Trey, a golf podcast for those who love golf, struggle with golf, and just like to enjoy the outdoors and fellowship with friends, all while chasing a ball around, trying to put it in a 4 1/4 inch diameter hole. From the Shortgrass is presented by UAMS Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, and brought to you by Stevens Incorporated, an independent financial services firm with the freedom to focus on what matters most. By Beechwood Hospitality, we partner with you to deliver high-yield results by managing, developing, and investing in top-quality hospitality assets. And now, from the Shortgrass, here's your host, Trey.
Welcome to another edition of From the Shortgrass, presented by UAMS Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. I am your host, Trey. Dan Hampton, born in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, grew up in Jacksonville, Arkansas, attended the University of Arkansas from 1975 to 1978, became the 4th pick of the Chicago Bears in the 1979 first-round NFL draft, had a great NFL career, played for the Bears from 79 to 1990. He's in the NFL Hall of Fame. He's also in the College Football Hall of Fame. But how did he get started playing the game of golf? You're going to learn more about that and some of his buddies that he likes to play with when he has time to come back to Arkansas and play. I got a chance to sit down with Dan in Boca Raton, Florida at the James Hardy Invitational a couple of weeks ago. It's a stop on the PGA Tour Champions schedule where the PGA Tour Champions are paired with Gold Jacket Hall of Famers, which of course Dan is one of those. How about his golf game though? You're going to find out more about that after the break. Stay with us.
This is Justin Acree with some exciting news. UAMS Ortho Now is now open at the Orthopedic and Spine Hospital at UAMS Health. If you have an orthopedic injury, sports, work, or anything else, walk in and get the best in orthopedic care. No appointment needed. Ortho Now is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to noon. Conveniently located at the Orthopedic and Spine Hospital at UAMS Health. For more information, call 501-686-TOSH. That's 501-686-8674.
At Stevens, our philosophy is to invest every dollar as if it were our own, to seize opportunity, to anticipate rather than react, to deliver constant focus in an ever-changing world, and to pursue the objectives of our clients in order to help them reach their financial goals. A proven history of helping companies and individuals. Stevens, member NYSE SIPC.
From Central Arkansas to South Arkansas to Northeast Arkansas, across the state to Northwest Arkansas, you will find a Beechwood hospitality property. From the Haywood in El Dorado to the Hilton Garden in Jonesboro to the Doubletree in Bentonville and the Staybridge Suites just south of Baumwalker Stadium, Beechwood Hospitality has a room for you. Beechwood Hospitality is the leader in hotel property management in the state. Make sure you find a Beechwood Hospitality hotel for your next overnight stay.
Welcome back to this edition of From the Shortgrass, presented by UAMS Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. I am Trey. UAMS Ortho Now is now open at the Orthopedic and Spine Hospital at UAMS Health. If you have an orthopedic injury, sports, work, or anything else, walk in and see the best in orthopedic care. No appointment is needed. Ortho Now open Monday through Friday, 8 to 8, and Saturday, 8 to noon. Conveniently located at the Orthopedic and Spine Hospital at UAMS Health. Dan Hampton, a fierce defensive tackle in college and the NFL as well, 4-time second-team All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowl in the NFL, a Super Bowl champion as well, won the George Halas Award in 1991, part of the 100 greatest Bears of all time, first-team All-American at Arkansas, Southwestern Conference Defensive Player of the Year, first-team All-Southwest Conference in 78, second-team All-Southwest Conference in 77, a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame, and now he's on From the Shortgrass. On the tee, Dan Hampton.
Dan, thanks for joining me on From the Shortgrass. Do you remember the first time you ever picked up a golf club and tried to play this game?
Yes, I do. And for all the young people out there, don't wait. My father was a caddy at Oklahoma City Country Club back in the early 50s, and he was a scratch player in Little Rock at Rebsman Memorial. He would go out there. He'd play one tournament a year because he had 3 kids, and he worked for IBM. And he would go out. We lived on a little 40-acre farm, and he would hit balls. He would hit like a 7-iron, a little 145-yard fade, and then he would hit a big rope hook drive. Back then, it would go 300 yards. And, he was 6'4", 200 pounds, and he would shoot at Rebsman back in the middle 60s. I got a trophy that's got the scores on it, 63, 65, 64, in a 3-day tournament. And he was a great player because he went and watched, as a caddy, you watch the good players and you emulate. You don't do what I do now, you're over the top and all that crazy stuff. But the point being is, I thought golf was a punk game, and I never cared about it. So years go by, I'm in Chicago. After the season, there's, really not a whole lot you have to do because, we're making a good living and we don't have to get a job. Well, I had a teammate by the name of Steve McMichael. Steve McMichael was, a golfer, and he wasn't a great golfer. He made All-State in Texas at his little high school, but, he didn't hit it a long way or anything like that. But he knew how to play. He played old man golf. He'd hit it in the fairway, hit it up around the green, chip and putt, and, he'd shoot good scores, 76, 78, whatever. Anyway, he said, come on, let's play golf. So I started playing. Well, I never took a lesson, but I tried to watch good players, and there's a bunch of good players, around the middle Arkansas area. Randy Davidson is, obviously one of the guys that I played a million rounds of golf with. And anyway, Randy and I have played in a lot of tournaments, a lot of scrambles, things like that. But it's a game you can play for life. And when I started playing, I kind of got crazy about it. And I was so fortunate having a high profile. I got to know, people like Greg Norman. I would get Greg Norman on the sidelines at Bear games. And, it was, John Daly. After John won the PGA, his caddy, his old caddy, a guy named Blake Allison, he said, come on, John wants to play. So we'd go play and we'd have fun. But I love the game, but I'm 66 and I'm 67. I'm 67 and I can't hit it like I once did, but I think I shot 84 today in the Pro-Am, and I didn't hit a lot of really great shots, but I was okay. And the one thing I think young people need to understand is, the swing fundamentals are so important, and if you can kind of do that and take lessons, learn how to play the game. I didn't, and everything I've been able to do was kind of homemade swing. But at one time I was a pretty good player. I got down to about an 8, but at the end of the day, having the opportunity to come play in a championship tournament like this, where the seniors are playing, I get to play with Glenn Day. John Daly's waiting for me when we get through here. Yep. So the long and short of it is, it's the greatest game on earth, and it's the hardest game on earth.
When you look at the game and picking it up at an age when you did, what was difficult to you?
I always say to my wife, make a good swing. Make a good swing, a rhythmic swing. When you're a 290-pound defensive lineman, you want to play violent golf. You want to, try to overpower the ball. And a lot of the times it works. Most of the time, though, you got trouble. And it's not a game you can overpower. You kind of have to sneak up on it and make a sweet swing, and a lot of good things will happen. But again, I am, and I appreciate you having me on your podcast. But at the end of the day, a defensive lineman that played 12 years in the NFL, I've had 20 knee operations, my shoulders are shot, my wrist has been broke 5 times. I'm not the guy that, will ever be what you would call a good golfer. But I love the game as much as anybody. And again, I'm so thankful that I was given this opportunity.
Well, and that's why you're on the podcast, because this is not a golf podcast of just great players. This is a golf podcast of people that love the game of golf and have interesting stories about how they got involved in it, like you.
Well, and so today, so for the folks at home, I played here in Boca Raton for the NFL Hall of Fame Hardy's
James
Classic.
Hardy Invitational. Yep.
Yes. And this is the first year. I hope to be back. But the point being is, I had such a nexus of, relationships with so many of the different, pro players like John Daly. I've been with John millions of times, and we've had great laughs and fun. We all know John has a good time. But Greg Norman, I got to play a round of golf with Jack Nicklaus. All these different things. I was so fortunate. But back to your point about, your podcast is really about people that just love the game. Well, guys that I used to play with a lot in the Little Rock area, Steve Ralston has always been such a wonderful, classy pro at Burns Park. Mm-hmm. I've actually won the Arkansas Open 3 different times with my buddies, with different players, one being Glenn Day, who I got to see Glenn today. He played great, as always. I love his swing tempo. I can't do it. I mean, it's silky smooth.
He doesn't try to attack the ball like you do.
Exactly. But he probably could not have been very good on third down like I was.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, everybody, did horses for courses. Well, what I was built and not only physically but mentally to do is completely different than what you want in the game of golf. But somehow, some way, I've had 6 hole-in-ones. So it's not like I'm just the biggest hack in the world. But I actually got to play with Doc Zimmerman, Randy Davidson, and Matt Watts this year in the Arkansas Open. And I played pretty darn well. The wind, it was a hurricane wind that had come up off the Gulf, and there were 30, 40-mile-an-hour winds. And I think I made 10 pars and a birdie. And for me, hey, I can go home, put my head on the pillow, and laugh.
Yeah, no doubt about that. How was it playing with Matt Watts? He's a buddy of mine.
Matt Watts.
He grew up around Burns Park, knows it like the back of his hand.
Matt Watts, he's a special guy, funny guy, and he's one of my favorite people. But the one thing is, at one time, Matt and we would take on pros in a 2-man scramble and would beat them. We would beat, Bob Ralston and Steve Ralston in a match because Matt was so good. And at the time, I was a real good chipper and putter, and I could help him. And, I'd throw a 7-iron in here and there and knock it up there, pretty close. But the point being is, Matt Watts had so much talent, but he had a very violent downswing, okay? It doesn't work in the bunkers. And he really struggled in fairway bunkers. And that's one of the things that kind of, befuddled him. And he never really kind of made it on a tour, but he was the state player of the year a time or two. He was just he was as good as it was. And he and Joey Nichols, they would go around and they would terrorize people. I remember Matt Watts telling me the story. They were going to like Pocahontas, some little town in Arkansas, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to play, and they roll in on Friday. They don't even play a practice round. Matt Watts is saying, I'll take anybody and give you 2 shots, for, $500 or whatever. And guess what? They would win. Randy Davidson, he was 11-time club champion. I think about 8 of them at a course in Jacksonville called Foxwood.
Yep.
I think 3 times. He set the course record at North Hills in a 4-ball. I think it was 2002, back when the course was completely different. It had bunkers, and it was really a legit test of golf. And Randy shot 63. Whew. And that's some great golfing.
That's golfing your ball, no doubt about that. Dan, you're in the NFL Football Hall of Fame. And this past year, you went into the College Football Hall of Fame. What did that mean to you to be in both now?
That's really kind of you to bring that up. I went into the NFL Hall of Fame in 2002. And actually, truth be known, I kind of expected it sooner. Okay, am I, arrogant or what? No. If you folks at home go and Google greatest NFL team of all time, it'll come up 85 Chicago Bears. And everybody said I was the best player on the best team of all time. I mean, on defense. I wasn't on offense because that was Walter Payton.
Yeah.
He was the best player on the team. But I was the best player on the best defense of all time. And that in itself is a huge, huge compliment. And, for a while, I kind of thought my window of opportunity may have closed. But there was a guy, and this is amazing. Back before cell phones, in 2001, it was December. I was in the kitchen of my house out there by, Cabot, and the phone rang, and I hardly ever answered the phone. And a guy said, "Hey, my name's John Turney, and I'm a number cruncher." And I said, "What are you?" He said, "I'm a cruncher." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Look, you don't know me, but I want to know what the hell is the matter with, you in the Hall of Fame. You should be in the Hall of Fame." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that, sir, but I guess they have other ideas and, they have other thoughts." He goes, "Well, let me tell you." He said, "What I do is I take Terry Bradshaw's record numbers, all the things, and I compare them against, Roger Staubach and Joe Montana, and I compare these players." He goes, "Do you realize that from the year you got there in 1979 until you retired in 1990, 12 years later, your defense led the league in every statistical category, in sacks, in yards allowed, in points allowed, every single stat. And everybody I talked to say, yes, Singletary was a great player, blah, blah, but Dan Hampton was," and I said, "Man, that's amazing." I said, "Could you write all that down and send it to me?"
Right.
And back in the days when there was faxes, he faxed me all these. I faxed it to a guy named Don Pearson, who was supposed to be making my case at the Hall of Fame. He was our, the sports writer, one of 50 that voted on Hall of Fame. And for whatever reason, he had an indifferent attitude. In fact, in 1982, I was Defensive Player of the Year with Pro Football Weekly magazine, which was like the Bible. He didn't even vote for me. He was that kind of guy. Anyway, the long and short of it, I sent him the fax, and I said, "Look, Don," I said, I don't know what the deal is, but, stats don't lie. Well, guess what? The Hall of Fame voting started at 10 o'clock that February 19th, right before the Super Bowl. I got a phone call at 10:05. I was the first guy up, and they all said, "This is amazing." He said, Bob Lilly, Randy White, Lawrence Taylor, all that.
Yep.
They were all in the top 10 over the 10-year, but nobody was a part of the number one in every statistical category. Well, since then, not only has Richard Dent got in, who just messed me up on my last 5-iron coming into the last hole.
I saw it.
Yeah, and at least I got the 2-putt for a par. But if you do something really well long enough, people will start to notice, and somehow, some way, maybe you do get a little recognition.
And you got into the College Football Hall of Fame for what you did at the University of Arkansas. And, being from the state of Arkansas and a Razorback had to be
Absolutely
prideful for you when you finally got into the College Football Hall of Fame.
It was fantastic. And I'll tell you, in the back of my mind, I always said, I don't really care, because everybody I played for with all that at Arkansas, they're all dead or gone. Lou Holtz has moved on, and there was nobody to kind of, the same thing. You got to make a case for your players. Now, if you make the final 16 and you can only be in the final pool by making All-American, and obviously, I made All-American. Well, all those years, I was like, nobody cared. Well, I was so fortunate. A number of people kind of got behind my, what would you call it, a campaign, and they kind of pushed it. And I was able to be inducted in December out in Las Vegas, and the great Steve Thomas, a friend of ours from Jacksonville, Arkansas, who's now a car dealer in Camarillo, California. He came. I was at the LSU game where they presented me my plaque at halftime. Unfortunately, we getting our ass kicked by LSU. I hate to say it, kind of like full circle. I'm in the Arkansas Hall of Fame. I'm in the Razorback Hall of Fame. I'm in the Chicago Bear. Yeah. Anyway, the College Hall of Fame was always that one, the outlier, and I didn't know if it would ever happen, but thank the good Lord. God is great. I had people that cared, and that was almost 50 years ago. 50 years ago this summer is when I showed up in Fayetteville as a 6'6", 222-pound, skinny kid with glasses. And a lot has changed since then.
No doubt about it. When you get on the golf course, is it a time for you, Dan, to get away from life and just relax and enjoy the outdoors?
So many people that actually have like real jobs go to and work in an office. That's the way they look at it.
Yep.
I don't look at it like that. I look at it as kind of my whole thing in life was work your butt off, and then you get to reward yourself with something or some things that you like to do. Well, golf has always been that. And I used to play in all these 3-man scrambles around the state of Arkansas, and I'd always get really good players, and I was always, the clunk on the team.
You knew how to pick your team. I
did. But I played so many golf tournaments with, Matt Watts and Randy Davidson and Doc Zimmerman. And again, golf, I don't want to say that it's a reward, but it's almost like, hey, finally, I get to do something I really, really like. And again, I'm not a great player. I haven't broke 80 but once in the last 5 years, but I'm always around 84, 86, something like that. And again, there was a time I shot even par at Greystone. I shot even par at North Hills in a tournament. That was 30 years ago. Today, I'm just glad to be out and be able to play. And we had such fun with Glenn Day today. Glenn, like I said, I played with him in the Arkansas Open 25 years ago. We won it. And the great thing about golf is it's the fellowship. It is the competition. But more than anything else, you get to challenge yourself. And this last shot, and you were standing out on the green, I didn't play well the way I wanted today. I think I made 8 or 9 pars. And anyway, at the end of the day, it's against the wind. It's about a 160-yard shot. I got a 5-iron. Richard Dent, my old teammate, rides up in the golf cart 5 feet away. Hey, man, what are you doing, brother? And it breaks your concentration. Anyway, I still was able to hit a decent enough shot where I got it on the front of the green and, 2 putts. So the bottom line is, if you folks ever thought that you got to be, some kind of an amazing athlete to play the game of golf, you got to be some kind of a millionaire or whatever. No, just get some clubs, go get some lessons, and you'll have the best time you've ever had for 4 hours. And you know what? It's infectious. You get to where you just wait for the next one.
No doubt about it. Best golf course you've ever played?
Chicago Golf.
Yeah.
My buddies went out and played Pebble Beach, and they said it was great, but I didn't go. But the point being is, I've always wanted to play there, and I'm not saying I'd play it great, but, it's one of those kind of bucket list courses. But Chicago Golf is the oldest 18-hole contiguous course in America. You say, what do you mean contiguous? Wingfoot had 9 holes in 1892 or something. Well, Chicago Golf was the first 18-hole layout, and it was in the middle of the suburbs of Chicago in a town called Wheaton. And I had this magnificent man He was great friends with Butkus, and I played a match against Butkus there, and I beat. But this is 30 years ago when I actually was playing pretty good. I had 3 birdies, and I shot 78, and I beat Butkus. He shot 79. It was that close. And I got to tell you, if you told me, today's Wednesday, you're going to die on Friday, where do you want to play tomorrow? I'd say I want to go to Chicago Golf. But in Chicago, I've played Olympia Fields, Flossmoor, Ravislow. There's a course up there called North Shore that is killer. There's a place called Shore Acres that is almost like the British Open with ravines. There's so many amazing
Medina.
courses. Yeah, and in Little Rock, I grew up playing on Foxwood and then North Hills, but I had all these buddies that played at Chenal and Pleasant Valley, and I've never played Little Rock Country Club. I've never played it.
CCLR.
Yeah, I'd like to someday. But anyway, the point being is that in an abstract way, those courses are too good for me. but I just love the entire, concept of playing a magnificent course like this one here, Broken Sound. I mean, it is a tough course. And the wind was gusting to 30 today. And, on a 150-yard shot, you'd have to hit 5-iron. There's one time I kind of punched a 4-iron into a green because, the wind was howling. The point being is it's not like, tennis where there's defined lines. And in fact, somebody told me one time, they said, what's the difference between golf and tennis? And the guy goes, what's the prettiest tennis course you ever played, right? yeah, it's a completely different animal.
No doubt about that. Final question for you, Dan. Fantasy foursome, living or deceased, you and 3 others that you would like to play around the golf with.
Well, I'm telling you, my buddies, I tell you, some of the greatest times I've had is with, those guys that I play. Matt Watts, Randy Davidson, and Doc Zimmerman. I've always, thought that how lucky was I? I got to play golf with Mike Ditka. I got to play golf with Walter Payton. I got to play golf with Greg Norman. I got to play with John Daly. I got to play with Glenn Day. Hey, my bucket list is complete.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Strength is measured not by the number of accounts. Strength is placing value on relationships. It's having the vision and the guts to invest in growth. It's the commitment to responsibly manage your money. At Stephens, we believe that our strengths build success, not only for us, but for our clients. Stephens, member NYSE, SIPC.
The next time you travel to El Dorado and need overnight accommodations, the Haywood Hotel is where you need to stay. The Haywood El Dorado Tapestry Collection by Hilton is a great place to stay if you're in South Arkansas, listening to live music or playing the challenging Mystic Creek Golf Club. Take time and relax in their bar for a drink before going out on the town for dinner. The Haywood, 210 South Washington, right in the heart of downtown El Dorado. Search the Haywood El Dorado on the web or call 800-293-0718 for reservations. The Haywood, a Beechwood hospitality property.
This is Justin Acree with some exciting news. UAMS Ortho Now is now open at the Orthopedic and Spine Hospital at UAMS Health. If you have an orthopedic injury, sports, work, or anything else, walk in and get the best in orthopedic care. No appointment needed. Ortho Now is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to noon. Conveniently located at the Orthopedic and Spine Hospital at UAMS Health. For more information, call 501-686-TOSH. That's 501-686-8674.
That's it for this episode of From the Shortgrass, presented by UAMS Health, Orthopedics, and Sports Medicine. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dan Hampton. I can't thank him enough for spending some time out of his schedule down in Boca Raton and sitting down with me. Also, thanks to David Basil for some assistance in setting up that interview. Beechwood Hospitality. When you need an overnight place to stay, Matthew Allen and Blair Allen, they know how to manage hotel properties. Beechwood Hospitality. Make sure you're staying at a Beechwood Hospitality hotel and you'll get a great night rest. Remember, when you find your ball mark on the green, fix it and a couple of more. And I hope to see you sometime soon from the Shortgrass.
You have been listening to From the Shortgrass, presented by UAMS Health, Orthopedics, and Sports Medicine, a weekly podcast dedicated to the game of golf. This has been a presentation of the Buzz Radio Network in association with Majestic Cubby Productions.